drives me crazy when people have all the information they need and then they come and they complain at me. And it's like, listen, I told you. I told you. I even wrote it down for you in front of you and gave it to you. And they forget. Anyway. There's that. I know, right, Emily? Like, that's the only thing I really still hate about doing the commissions is most of the time people are super understanding. I'd say 99% of the time people are phenomenal about like, hey, I might be a little later on this, or, I don't contact them really until I get close to doing the portrait again. But like some people, like this one was super backhanded, and everything they accused me of, I'm like, no, I did this, or I did this, and I did this. It's like, no, you have no grounds for this. I'm sorry. So anyway, I don't know. That's why I dealt with 20 minutes ago. So I'm trying to... That's the hardest thing I think about doing art for people, is once in a while you get a hard one. And it kind of comes out of left field too. That's the other thing too. I had to turn off notifications on my email because sometimes I'm kind of weak when it comes to checking things on my phone sometimes, so I have to turn off notifications. Otherwise, if I hear it or see it, I'm going to go check it right away. So I had to turn it off on my email so it wouldn't affect me when I didn't want it to. So if anybody else is kind of like this and you have that weakness, highly suggest whatever kind of triggers you go turn it off. And then, like, I'll prepare myself before going back into the email and being like, okay, there could be some bad stuff in here. I'm prepared for it. It's okay. And, kind of talk to yourself before you go into it. And then at least you're prepared. It doesn't catch you off guard. Because I feel like if something catches you off guard, you're going to be twice as bad reacting to it than if you had kind of prepped yourself. So that's just something I did. It helped so much. So much to actually be prepared for it. But anyway, I know, right, Bees? I'm like, why would you do that? I still have yet to make the portrait, And then, I don't know. But it's one of those things where it's like, I can never purposefully do a bad job, even if somebody's absolutely rude to me. And what I really hate is the squeaky wheel gets the oil. So anybody that complains to me, usually I want to get them out of my life ASAP. So I'll do their portrait and I'll be unbiased about it and make sure I do it at the same quality I do everybody else's. But I want to get theirs out of there, that sort of thing. And I hate that theirs gets done faster. But the caveat is they don't get they don't get extra stuff. I usually give extra stuff. So they turn into a bad egg. Yes, twice. I've only had probably 3 or 4 people out of hundreds of portraits, probably up to 400 now, but that have been weird or bad. And 2 of those, like you said, were great for like the first email, and then just went 180 and just went evil. And I was like, what is going on? Is this the same person I talked to? Because it doesn't sound like it, Emily, I wish I could do that, but since it's usually a big chunk of cash. So I've had 3 people in the past who have asked for refunds. One was a guy that actually broke up with his girlfriend, and so like the pets weren't his anymore. That one was totally understandable, and I gave him back his in full because I was able to at the time. The other 2 were just like, I've changed my mind. I'd like my money back. And usually, like, the case is that I can't give them fully back at that time. So I'm like, well, I wish you'd reconsider. Also, if you do want a refund, I can do it, but it's going to be in $20 increments over like a couple months. Is that okay? And then I remind them, hey, I'm a freelance artist. I'm not made of money. This is my only income. And then the whole, I think, idea of, oh, that's going to take a while. I don't want to have to deal with that. Then they're like, fine, I'll keep it. I'm like, great, thank you. Like, because this doesn't make me feel awful. So those 2 at least I got done and out. And then the lady, one of those 2, ended up coming back at me and was like, oh, this was so good. I'm so glad I decided to go through this. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, thank you, I think. At least that one wrote me back. they don't always write me back. But yeah, the money back thing, God, sometimes I'm relieved if somebody asks it, because then it's one off my queue, but at the same time it's like, eh. Also, yesterday I started Pets in Armor 2, my second book of all the commissions I've done, and that's got all of 2017 and 2018's. Yeah, all of 2017 and 2018's. Not all of it. I probably didn't include 8 or 10 of them. But Emily, yours is going to be in there. Nightshades is in there. A bunch of people's are in there. But the ones I didn't put in, I just didn't feel like they were at the caliber that the other ones are. Like, they'd stick out, kind of. So that book will be 50 pages, but it's over 100 drawings. Well, it's around 50 pages. Might be a little more, because I might add in pencils this time around. I'm going to do side-by-sides. So some people sent in the portrait next to the pets. I'm going to throw that in. And hopefully I'll have that by C2E2. We'll see. What? She never even responded after you sent them to her, you mean? Yeah, Emily, I thought you'd like that. Yours sticks out like a sore thumb in the best way. Yours is one of the only ones that has like a full background. I think maybe I had one other one that kind of came close, but yours almost goes all the way to the edges. So, you know, if anybody asks, I'm going to be like, well, they gave me a lot of detail. Just so, you know, it's like, oh, okay. Did they pay you at least, Bees? Hi, Kitch. Oh, man. Humans are so weird. And that's another reason I'm pulling back on cons, too. I love being at conventions, and I love people and talking to them and taking their pet commissions, but I need to hermit for a year, I think. So this year I'm only doing so far C2E2, and I got in a Dragon Con. So I'll be at Dragon Con. I did not get into Gen Con. Second year in a row, the first year, which was 3 years ago, I got in. Like, I submitted and I got in the first time I tried. And it was my best show ever. Holy crap, nothing's touched it. And then the next 2 years I didn't get in. And I think it's after they saw my booth. This is my personal neurotic mind and thinking, well, why didn't I get in? I think I might be too kitschy for them. Because all the other booths look like individual tiny high art galleries, and I'm in a tree. Just the thought, I don't know. But I'm really sad I didn't get in Gen Con. If I don't get in next year when I try, I might get a vendor booth. We'll see. It depends on how much money I have, because those are expensive. But yeah. Let's see, what else? Yeah, I'm going on my puppet trip. This year should be a good year. As long as we can keep money coming in, should be a good year. It is really dumb about Gen Con. They said they had like 300 entries. The worst part is their email is a little bit of a stab, like a double stab. At least for me, because what they send is, it's a rejection email, right? But there are two kinds of rejection emails. There's one where they mention, oh, but we do have a waiting list, and if you'd like to apply for the waiting list, you can go here. Then there's the email I got, which is like, you're not going to be in the art show, and we're not even letting you apply for the wait list. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, what would it hurt to actually just have people that you know aren't going to make it into the show waitlist or not, just apply for the waitlist anyway, just to make them feel good, and not to be like, there was a third email. Because we have friends that got in, we have friends that didn't get in that got on the waitlist, so we know there's an email in between the one we got. So I just thought that was so funny. I was like, you don't think people are going to talk about this? Anyway, it was funny. Yeah, the puppet trip will make up for it, but it sucks because the puppet trip is it's spending money where I could make like 10 grand at Gen Con. It's like, oh well. Oh yeah, Bees is here. Oh really, Serenity? Yeah, I had a first couple weird ones. It's really weird because in the beginning I had weird ones, and then since I've been doing them, I haven't gotten weird ones. It's really strange. You'd think you'd get weirder ones as you go along, but the weird ones were in the beginning. It's like if you can stand these ones, you'll make it. Oh, thanks, Emily. It's because I think this is just me thinking, but I'm pretty sure if they're doing it the same way other conventions do it, then that means that those people have game credits. Because like at a comic show, they put precedence on people with comic credit. So I do have a little comic credit, so usually I get into a lot of comic shows. But I don't have any particular game credits. So like if they worked for Wizards of the Coast, if they've done card art for anything, Kickstarters, whatever, they've got that in their resume technically. So I don't know. Peace. So I should really work at getting some more of those. I'm gonna be in a Kickstarter for an RPG game card this year sometime, probably around June, and then I'm doing a book cover for a guy. That's the other thing, book covers. I don't know. I don't have that illustrative, like digital, fully rendered look. I'm okay with that. Hi, Kristen. How you doing? All right, let's get to the meat of this then. Yeah, I'll keep you posted about it. I have no idea what it's really like or if it's going to be good or what. I have no idea. I'm just doing it because it's funny. And it's fantasy animals. So I can't argue with that. So, let's start. How to research for art and other projects. Big clump of something, right? So, this hinges kind of on two things. One, it's good if you already have a pretty strengthened creative muscle. And what I mean by that is that you work on creating original ideas and concepts and stuff all the time. You're not doing fan art all the time. You're purely focusing on new ideas and things, and you're not regurgitating a lot of stuff. That's kind of important. The second thing is that you're curious. I find that a lot of people that fail at this creative thing, where they're trying to think of original ideas and stuff, they give up pretty quick, or they're not curious and care enough. So what I mean by curious is you have to kind of be hungry to find out about something, but you also have to figure out what to be hungry about, meaning you need that creative side to kind of think of something to go research. Does that make sense? This is going to be a kind of high-level hippie shit, just because a lot of this relies on kind of what kind of artist you are, what you're really into, and what you enjoy researching. Because I feel like as an artist, whatever you do, crafts, art, comics, whatever, you have to kind of be passionate about learning about whatever you're going to draw about, craft, whatever, because you have to go learn about it. So every month that I've done one of these Mythical Monthly Guardians, or Monthly Mythical Guardians, I found out I've been saying it wrong, and I made it up. Monthly Mythical Guardians is, I'll have this base idea, and then since I write kind of a story or a bio about this thing, I go and I research certain aspects of that thing. So, oh, Emily, bye. Thank you for coming. I hope you're having a good Friday and you have a good weekend, okay? Kitchen wizard fart. Good use of the highlight. Good use. Sleep deprived. Well, a new baby will do that, right? Right? Okay, so every month I've done that. So, like the Snowlum, who's at the bottom of the screen right now, I actually researched about different types of snowflakes and like avalanches and things. Like it's like you have to dive kind of deep into something to pick and choose what you like and then pull out of it and concentrate what you wanted out of it to fit it. You know what I mean? Biscuits. Oh, Emily does. Pickles, bees. Biscuits. So the Snowlum, and then when I did the Sapin, I wanted to, this is where you have to learn what to include and what not to, and then when to bend the truth as well. So the Sapin, its name is derived kind of from sap in pine tree, right? Because it was a pine cone with pine needles sticking out of it, kind of looked like a little mini porcupine. But they protect their pine trees and stuff. So I had to think of all these ways they would protect a pine tree and all of these sorts of things. So I had to look up, well, what kind of pine trees are there? What do they provide? Like, what do pine trees give out? They give out pine cones and certain types of pine needles, all this stuff. So when I learned that some pine trees have sap and some have nectar, it's one of the two. So, but, oh no, it was gum. Resin. It was resin. So it was resin or sap, and I was like, well, this is where I had to make a choice. Did I want to be accurate and use resin, or did I want to be add that fantasy element, use sap, and make it more approachable to regular everyday folk who would understand what sap is over resin? Because I don't know how many people really know resin. So plus sap is just so much more, I don't know, it's cute. I don't know. So that I took a little bit of an inaccuracy in what I'll say is an artistic merit type of thing. Oh, peace. Oh my god. Cute. Oh, Emily does and Kristen does. Oh my god. Kristen has the newest baby. Emily also has a baby. I don't know how I forgot about yours, Kristen. I'm sorry. And I had just talked about it. It's because I'm in the middle of other things, I'm sure. My brain is... And I'm drinking a lot of coffee. I am lit right now. Like, it's stupid. I knew I'd need to be, though, to explain this. So is everybody on board with me right now? You understand what I'm talking about with the creative finagling? I'll go through kind of the next part, too, in a second. But do you get the overview, I guess? The objective? Well, he's also overseas. Aren't you, Bees? Like, you move around a little bit. Are you still Sweden? You in Sweden? Yeah, Emily, you and Kristen, yours is probably... She's at a year now, right? We're close to? Yeah, I knew it was one of those duality things. Like, Bodhi has the Australian English thing going on. So I never know which he's more of. Yeah. Oh yeah, the kitchen, I know. You know them. I don't know what I'm talking about. 9 months. Okay, so she's almost here. Ooh, that's gone quick, hasn't it? He's not English? God, it was Australian and something else. Nope, I'm not going to remember it. He's got a dual thing going on, though. I thought his dad was English. Or something like that. Like one of his parents or something was English. And he's your first boy, so... Ah! Okay. So now, this month... No, not this month. February. February is, we all know, Valentine's Day, but I never like to hit that on the nose because I feel like it's a little too obvious to do something related to romantic love when it's Valentine's Day, and plus I feel it alienates a lot of people, singles and such, and I don't want to do that. I want something that'll kind of blanket everybody, where everybody could go to it and get something good out of it, because ultimately these are usually supposed to make people happy, so I don't want them to be sad. So, alright Emily, have a good night. So what I'm deciding to do for February, and you guys are the first to hear it, is I'm gonna be doing kind of, and this is where I'm telling you everything straight from how I'm thinking it, alright? I want to do something revolving around baked goods, because baked things are usually considered, oh, it was baked with love, it was made with, and usually when you are making things for other people, when it comes to food and stuff, not glitter, but kitchen, you know about this is up your alley. Kitchen. So, I actually kind of was inspired by, if you guys know Fire Seal, and I asked for his permission on this. I didn't want to step on his toes, which is so funny, Kitchen. We were just talking about this. I was going to do bread stickers and like baked goods stickers with this, but it's going to be like a yeast spirit, but I'm not going to call it that. And this is where I got to research, because I want to make sure it's something that doesn't just work for bread, but can work for other baked goods, just baked goods like sweets and stuff, sweets and breads. I do have that international tier, so there's that. But like I said, calling it a yeast spirit is a little like, I don't want to call it that. So I'm going to look up a bunch of stuff. I'll take you through my course of action. I'll kind of draw things while I'm kind of looking through it, but, the bread stickers and the baked good stickers should be super cute. Okay. I'm thinking like acorn sticker level, the ones I did before. So let's do this now. So the first thing that I'm going to actually look up is, and it's going to sound gross, this is so funny, this is the one thing I decide to start this on, is yeast. Because from what I know, everything needs yeast of some kind or a baking agent to rise. Yeah? And the nice thing about that too is this idea of yeast is not only can I use that for the story of the spirit, but I can also use that in the Guardian's Gift. Now I'll show you here, actually. So for those that don't get my Mythical Monthly Guardians, or Monthly Mythical Guardians, please. Hold on, Butters. Oh, there we go. Okay. So, for those who aren't familiar, you get the lore sheet, which is this thing, and usually it's not this long. This one, I kind of went crazy on the Snowlimb's backstory. But you usually get this lore scroll. It's a sheet of a bunch of lore that I've made up for this particular creature. And then you get a Guardian's Gift. Now the Guardian's Gift is an attribute of that monthly mythical guardian where they kind of bestow it on you. It was my answer to like a horoscope or a fortune cookie. It was the same like lineage there. So instead, the Snowlimb, the idea is if you take the button, let's say you've got the button, it's missing the top here, which is like right there, but if you took the button and wear it, the idea is that you'd bestow yourself with that buff, kind of like in an MMO, okay? That's the idea, but I don't think it ever came across with this. But that's ideally what I would want. So you get the button, you get the gift, you get the lore scroll, and then you get whatever I deem as the extra that month. For this, instead of stickers, because they're it's hard when I do a creature that's kind of a weird creature, you know, that's obscure, and if you made stickers of it, somebody'd be like, what the hell is this? And I didn't want to just do snow stickers, because I feel like no one wants that right now. Maybe at the beginning of, like, the winter, everybody's like, yeah, winter, yeah, but it's January, everybody's on their way out, right? So instead, I did the stages of Snowlimb, where it's got the different stages of how big they can get, right? So this is what I did for this one. So you get all this stuff. And you only get this for $6 until the end of the month. So let it be known that if you do want one of these, it's only going to be $6 until the end of the month, and then it's going up to $8 for new people. For the people who are already on it, I just caught a spider while talking to you. You see him? He's in there. There he is. I'll let him out later. There you go. So for anybody else who signs up after February, it's going to go up to $8. But anybody who does right now, it's going to be locked in. Anyway. Hey, Alex. That's okay. So I kind of explained what I'm doing in the stream. I'm explaining how to research for art and projects, whether it be writing, whether it be crafting, whatever. It's to teach how to research something that you're starting, right? And kind of how to go down that. So Decent strain. Really? That's crazy, bees. Okay, so yeast is more what I wanted. I wanted that natural element. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to start researching yeast. And if I find something in there that would make a more better, more approachable word than yeast, I might just look up in the end, if I can't find anything, I might look up thesaurus words that mean rising or encouragement, because I was also thinking it would just be a baking spirit for bread and baked goods that would actually like cheer it on and make it rise up like it's getting puffed up with, whatever. So then its guardian's gift would also be rising agent, something to that extent where it's like, it would probably revolve around like self-confidence, just confidence in general, that you can lift yourself up. You don't need other people to do it for you. And that's probably what that gift will kind of revolve around. So I haven't done any work on this yet because it is for February, but I wanted to take you through my process of how I kind of do these. Because I feel like anybody can really do this. And like I said, you really have to kind of have this hunger to find out about the things that you're going to be doing. So it's really important that you approach it optimistically, that you'll find something cool about it, even if right now it's not so cool. You have to turn it into something that you find cool. And I think that's really the alluring part of fantasy anything, is basically you can approach something that you wouldn't usually like and make it into something that another demographic would like, or you yourself end up being like, yeah, this is awesome, So it's really important, I feel, to be able to spin things like that, because once you start doing that, you can use that on projects and freelance work, and you're like, well, I really don't want to do this, but you have to find that silver lining. You have to find that yeast, that rising agent in the project to actually, enjoy working on it. Otherwise, the project's going to end up being crap. You're going to trudge through it. You're going to be miserable. You have to find something to be excited about it. But Albert, oh no. I was going to say, Kitchen, do you have the mother yeast? Is that what it's called? See, I can use this too. So that lore of the yeast starter, which I thought it was called mother yeast, or mother. Sorry, my nose is for some reason all of a sudden stuffy. What is that called though? The mother dough. That's what it was. Okay, so I can use that, right? I can use that in the story that, all these things come from the mother dough, or something that's similar to mother dough, but not as on the nose. You know what I mean? So I can take all these things. So it's really good to write down, all these things you find that are super particular and super cool about it that you can spin into fantasy. And that, come on, that's like free. That's a freebie right there. So, mother dough. Like, how cool is that we still use? I feel like yeast, in a way, is kind of one of those old school things we keep around, like crocheting and knitting and all those, almost forgotten things. But friendship bread, yeah, that's what it is. So they probably got that mother dough from an old piece of bread, old yeast, right? I don't know as much about it as Kitchen does, because Kitchen is a wizard in the kitchen. She cooks all the time. So the word yeast comes from Old English root meaning boil, foam, or bubble. See, already I've got some words I could work in or work with. So when I start on these projects, I do the most obvious thing first. I find the main thing that I'm going to kind of base the entire thing off of, the entire idea, in this case yeast, but I want to make it approachable. I want to put a fantasy spin on it. I want to make it have just tons of lore that doesn't exist yet, but applies to it. So my first stop is always Wikipedia, because Wikipedia does this really nice thing about making stuff really concise, it's to the point, and it mentions really particular things. Now, what happens is if I read through the Wikipedia page and I'm like, there's maybe one or two things that were kind of interesting, then I can take those things and then go look further. Or I'd have to pull out of the idea of yeast and go a little bit higher level and go to bread or just baked goods in general, and maybe the history of those. And then I might have to just redirect from yeast to somewhere else and kind of focus in on that and a culture in particular that does something special. So maybe, let's say yeast didn't have anything cool about it, but maybe there was a culture that developed a certain type that was really cool and was used in a certain way. That I could focus in on and then twist it to be my own thing. And the main thing, and this is the whole idea of great artists steal. People always think they mean literally steal art and go make it theirs. No, that's not what they mean. When they say great artists steal, they mean they'll take something that exists and they'll spin it enough to make it their own, where you won't recognize the first thing that they had seen. You won't recognize their inspiration. Okay? So hopefully that makes sense. But there's a few books on it, and the whole idea of artists stealing. We're not stealing. We're technically borrowing and repurposing, if you want to put it that way. But yeah, so I'm excited about this because yeast has so many things in general about it. Like what it does translates so well to a metaphor. The fact it helps baked goods rise, and it puffs them up with good taste and good feelings, right? I can use that as the guardian's gift to be like, you know, you go around and you motivate people, you be the yeast of whatever, but I don't want to say yeast. So many people have a problem with that word. It's like moist. I never think moist is gross. I'm sorry if I've already had a few of you like, ugh. I think of cake when I hear moist, and that's the fatty in me, man. I love cake, all right? Oh my God. Cake. But I think of cake with moist. You should, if you think moist is gross, maybe rejigger your mind to think of cake. It helps so much, because you'll get somebody who's all snarky, comes up to you and you don't like words, moist, and you're like, it's okay, I think of cake. And they're like, oh, you beat me. Anyway. Okay. So, it means boil, foam, or bubble. Now, the thing about yeast, too, is in my mind, my immediate thoughts of it, I like to write down my immediate thoughts on things, too, because I have usually a really good generic blanket of a lot of info. I'd be probably really good at Jeopardy. But, like, when I thought of yeast, I was like, oh man, this innate purpose, its purpose is to lift things up, rise, to lift and rise. So I write all this kind of crap down, and this is my Patreon book here. So I usually only write down a few things. You'll see on a couple of these pages I'll just write down a couple key notes, and then I'll just go crazy drawing. Things here for the Foley. Those are the stickers. So I'm going to do like bread and baked goods stickers for those that are just coming in. But areas like this. So it's important to kind of take down a few notes that stick out to you, a couple of your initial thoughts too, the reasons you chose to do that. So usually things are baked with love. And that's the whole reason I'm doing it during February, because I don't want to alienate people by not doing, if I do something regarding romantic love, there are singles that are going to feel lonely and depressed, and that's not what this is about. But everybody, I feel like, can partake in baked goods, whether you're vegan or even gluten-free, you can still find baked goods and stuff. So, people make things for each other, and I feel like food is that ultimate, I care for you, take this thing. So, that's part of it. So, February. So the whole thing is basically a giant metaphor, like huge metaphor, which I'm so all about metaphors. I love it. Have you really? I've procrastinated. When Gabe and I lived at the last apartment, one of my biggest bads for that year was that I was a procrastinator. So I'd be like, man, we could sure use some banana bread. Guess I better do that instead of this commission. And I'd go do some banana bread or make some muffins. Oh my God, I found a new recipe. I have to try this right now while we have the ingredients. It was bad. And we had a lot of food around a lot. Yeah, and it shows. So, anyway. So keep reading. So yeast is one of the earliest domesticated organisms. They found it in Egyptian ruins. See, that's cool. So it's ancient. So I can mention that as ancient. That's probably one of my favorite words too. I love the word ancient. Oh, yeah. See, the problem with art is it's the perceived value. So if it gets talked about a lot, it's like the internet, like a meme or something. Inherently, it's stupid, right? But it gains its notoriety, and because of that notoriety, it becomes something bigger, and then its value just, inflates. So similar to the banana duct tape to a wall, I'm sure after people saw that and they started talking about it, and other people are like, have you heard of this thing? And oh my gosh, it's so... And then that's how it kind of goes crazy. But the cool thing about that was that some guy just went up, a performance artist, I think he was. He went up to the banana taped to a wall, took it off it, and just ate it. And that brings it back down again to, hey, it's just a banana on a wall. Which, to me, that whole thing was the art performance. And who knows, maybe he's the one that actually put it up. I don't know. But, like, the whole idea of, I feel like, modern art and the art that's, like, art, it has nothing to do really with what it is. It's about its perceived idea. And that's why some people argue about it. That's why some people pay billions of dollars for it. I don't know. It's not as obvious as fine art or traditional art. So... it's for a demographic. That's over there. Here at Clover Gabo House, we're not really into the high art thing. But I do think it has to do with that whole idea of its perceived thing. One of my favorite stories that a friend told me was there was this guy who made this amazing piece that was like a giant oil painting. It was gorgeous. It had people in it, and it was like all almost Renaissance looking, like old school Caravaggio and shit, like, really well done. And he sold it for like, millions of dollars or whatever. And the night before it got put up wherever it was going, he took blue and he just painted over the entire thing one solid blue. And the person still apparently bought it because then it became this whole thing where, yeah, that looks like a square of blue, but behind it is this amazing thing. So that one was selling an idea, I feel like, and an experience and a memory that this painting had. So that's really high level, but it's really cool though too. But I would not want to be the person to buy it, but I really like that story, that the night before he just F it, I don't know, I thought it was cool. The story itself. So you never know, I guess, what a giant square has been through. I'll still go to a gallery though and be like, that's bullshit. But if I learn more about it and learn it has a story or something interesting, then cool. But if it is literally just a square, you're dead to me. I don't even care. Right, Kitchen? See, I feel like that's kind of the idea behind it, but not everybody gets there. You know what I mean? I don't know. And then I have some people I know that they bullshit their art to the ends of the earth. Like, they'll have something they do and I'm like, what is that? And they're like, well, this is how I feel about this, and this, and I was really commenting on, like, the state of this, and why is it like that? And I'm sitting here like, you're pulling this out of your ass as you're talking to me. I can tell. You really just painted that and didn't think of all this crap. Like, I know it. So it's weird. Let's see. Oh, the refrigerator had something to do with yeast. That's interesting. Well, I guess it's interesting that I'm probably the only Twitch streamer that has a whole episode dedicated to yeast. There's that. I should have just called it yeast. Ooh, yeasts are chemorganotrophs. Chemorganotrophs? They use organic compounds as a source of energy and do not require sunlight to grow, which I think is a nice way of saying bacteria. Is that what that is? Oh, it's because of carbon. They get sleepy. Oh, I'm writing that down. Yeah, Kitchen, tell me anything you want to tell me. Get sleepy when cold. I might be able to use that. I'm still trying to figure out how literal I want to be about this. Oh, depending on what you use, it will change the process. You need sugar and warmth. Sugar and warm. So here's an example of getting information from elsewhere. So reach out to your friends. What do you know about this thing I'm about to start a project on? Usually you want to double check, but I trust Kitchen. I get it. Oh, naturally occurring yeast is on skins of fruits and berries. Well, I'll be damned. When it comes from plants as sap or on cacti. And soil and insects. Yeast is everywhere, y'all. This is crazy. Oh, fungus, yeah. Oh, there's a black yeast. Oh, see? Okay. If that's I'm gonna look further, but if I find out that's a bad thing, I could have the good yeast have a bad guy. You know? Let's see. It has a negative effect on bacteria that normally produce antibiotics and kill parasites. So it allows things to spread that are bad. Interesting. Black yeast, known as black fungi, diverse groups. Black yeast are... So this is what I'm saying, like, you can go super into something and then find a dead end and be like, well, okay, this was a neat idea, but it didn't exactly work, or it doesn't apply to what I'm doing, and then you kind of have to pull out and redirect. I feel like it's important while you're thinking of these things, though, to see it as a road, you know? This really makes your journey a lot more, I guess, palpable, where it's easier to think about. So I started here with the idea of yeast, right? And then I went down Wikipedia, and that worked out for a couple things. I was like, yay, you know, that worked. And then I went down another road, and then it was like black fungus or black yeast. And I was like, okay, well, I know the idea of it, but there's nowhere else to go from there. So I can go back up here, and then obviously Kitchen over here too gave me some info. So that's good. So that's another form of research. So thinking about it like this and knowing when to pull back out, because if you go too far down a road, that's not going to get you anywhere. You're just wasting time. So when you're researching, be aware of what you can use, what you can't use, and pull out from it. So, oh, make it puff. Oh yeah, the alcohol. So he could get, like, he parties with the bread, and the bread's like, yeah, you know, you get that, what is it, liquid courage, right? So maybe the yeast parties with all these, you know, doughs and things, and they rise up, they're like, yeah, we're the best, we're so good, we're so sweet, bro. And then, like, they get puffy. And maybe he's the party spirit, you know? Alcohol from sugar. So all this is metaphors, right? And I feel like the best way to do anything fantasy or sci-fi based is to kind of make it a metaphor for something that exists now. And you can do that with vehicles, you can do that with buildings, guns, everything. Bye, Alex. Thanks for coming. Hope you're having a good Friday night. It's Friday. Ashley, it's Friday. It's Friday. Have a good Friday night. And a good weekend if I don't talk to you. So, like, I don't need to know that black yeast produces asexually. That's not going to help me right now. It's irrelevant. So, you can throw that one out. However, if I ever read it or need to know it for Jeopardy, I'm fucking there. So, in the Mediterranean basin, referred to as rock-inhabiting fungi. Oh. Black yeasts are believed to be the most resistant organisms known to date. Wow. A research paper in 2011 talked about the occurrence of pathogenic black fungi in household dishwater. Uh-oh. Oh, but it's not a big deal. And they're not related to cloudier fungus. Good to know. So, pull back from that, but it is good to know there are bad yeasts. Black yeast equals evil. Alright? So we take that down. So once I've got kind of enough to go on, which this in itself can really be, you know, and it comes in other forms too. I forgot all about beer. So that's a liquid form, technically, right? So when I draw this, I might want to draw a character that can kind of shapeshift and turn into solids, liquids, airs, all those sort of things. Because you guys said that yeast is occurring in air naturally too, right? So there's air, then beer is like a liquid, and then bread and baked goods, that's, you know. So it depends on how far down this rabbit hole I want to go. And I'll kind of eventually make that decision when I'm writing. So if I can write a whole thing about just the one that does baked goods, awesome. But if I find it's coming up a little short, I might add in the part about beer or other things. But then again, I have to think over and be like, well, who's my demographic? I really wanted this geared towards kids. Do I want to mention beer? No, definitely not. So because of that, I won't even go there. See, I just went through that in my head. I was like, oh, beer, blah, 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 blah. No, kids. I don't drink either, so it's weird I'd be entertaining that. But it is cool, it has liquid form. And maybe I allude to that because I do have a couple, actually most of the people in my group are adults. But I could allude to that without using the word beer. You know what I mean? So it could be that dual level thing that sometimes Pixar can do, where they make a joke that the adults get and goes over the kids' heads, that sort of thing. So, black yeast is gay. How? How is black yeast gay? What? So then there's that. Wine has yeast too. I didn't know that, but I guess, yeah. Grapes and anything fermenting, right? Fermentation has to do with yeast, doesn't it? Okay, so now here's the baking article. And there's apparently a separate article about baker's yeast particularly. So, well, kombucha also has yeast, I believe. Yeah? And that's just tea, technically, fermented tea. Okay, so leavening agent is another word for baker's yeast. So I like the word leavening. I could probably use that somewhere. Yeah, carbonated, I could see that. Though I don't know where carbonation in water comes from, like mineral water. I don't understand where that comes from though. Isn't it just carbon dioxide? Baker's yeast, blah, blah, blah. Oh, there's baker's yeast and brewer's yeast. That's cute. I kind of like that. Oh, it's steamed or boiled potatoes, water from boiling. So, when you're an artist, you have to be able to kind of, and I mean any kind of artist, even a musician would end up doing this at some point, I'm sure. But you go down so many roads that you really don't know anything about, so you end up learning all this random knowledge. And I mean random. I know a shit ton about bugs. you know, like stuff like that. But like you figure out all these things because you have to research for stuff you want to do, and you learn all this other crap along the way. So I think sometimes artists are so well versed in so many things, like architecture, cars. How does a car work? How does it look on the inside? How do you, like, that's why a lot of sci-fi work that's done for, concept stuff for sci-fi, so many of it has actually been almost reverse engineered to actually be working now. I've seen a couple articles on stuff that's like, it was super like crazy when we thought about it in this like person's illustration, but we've actually applied it to our living now because it was reverse engineered. Like, well, we could do that. Like, engineers looked at the illustration, we're like, oh, that could be done. Just has to do this, and then we end up with the thing because it was just a concept. But then they broke it down and were able to actually make it work. So it's actually really cool that in some ways artists get things from engineers, and in the flip side, engineers get things from artists. So it's pretty cool. Hey, Sarah. There you go. See? Learning stuff already. Give us all your random facts, you guys. If you know a really good random fact, throw it in. We'll all learn from each other tonight. Yes, flatbread. So flatbreads are still used with yeast, right, Kitchen? Like, you still have to use some form of yeast for even a flatbread, right? Oh man, types of it. Cream, compressed, active dry, instant, rapid rise, deactivated. So this is cool too. Whenever you get a breakdown of different types of something, that could potentially be like growth stages of something, or different culture yeasts, if that makes sense. Cultures of yeast, like actual heritage type culture. So you've got the yeast of the north, the yeast of the south, this sort of thing. And you could potentially give them their own, like, costumes and their own rituals and all this stuff because you have different types. So that's kind of cool. But like, naan. Is naan or pita bread still used with yeast, Octopus females eat their male counterparts. If they don't, they die from starvation. Protecting eggs. Damn, I didn't know that. So it's kind of like almost a praying mantis situation. That's cool. Okay, good. So they are flatbreads, but they still use yeast. Right. See, that's cool. Okay, so honestly, I probably have enough to go on right now. You don't need to dig too far, but now I'm like into this. I think it's kind of cool. And then what I'll probably end up doing too is looking up dough, bread, and then like donuts or cream puffs, anything that's also a sweet thing that's bready, and then see how it kind of differs and how it has similarities. And then I'll use those as much as I can in either the drawings or the lore behind it. Maybe it's, it came from somewhere, it changed what it was, it became something else. Maybe this character has its own hero's journey where it had some tough times, it, persevered, and then it ended up being what it is now, which is like, because all these like myths, legends, lore, any sort of mythological figure or fictional god, deity, creature, anything like that usually has its own little kind of arc, right? Where, well, it had this thing happen to it, and then it was like this, and then it changed, and it has its own little character arc. So I like to kind of put that in all of these, and I think that adds depth at least to the character itself. So whenever you can put that in, adversity that something, overcomes, it's always a good thing, right? Baker's dozen is 13. I didn't know they'd cut off your hand. I thought it was because if you dropped one, you had an extra. That's all I thought a baker's dozen had the extra one in for. I had no idea it was because you'd get your hand cut off. Cheers to that. Shit, man. I'll make like 3 extra cookies. Is that like an Ashley's dozen? Clover dozen? I'll say it's a Clover dozen. 3 extras. Just in case. Wow. Bioremediation has to do with yeast being in TNT, so explosives. I wonder if that has to do with C4 too. This is crazy because you can use it for other things other than obviously baking, but root beer has yeast in it. Kombucha, that one I know. Kefir, I never know how to say that. I know it's a yogurt type drink. Aquarium hobby. Oh wow! Yeast is often used by aquarium hobbyists to generate carbon dioxide to nourish plants in their aquarium. I'll be damned! How about that? See, this is just interesting. Huh. Well, alright, okay, so we have enough to go on. So I'll pull out of this because, just for now. Yeah, kitchen, you know a lot. This is great. So then there's dough. So I had this idea originally where this thing would be literally yeast, right? I would just want to think of a different name for it so I didn't irk people. And now I don't know if I want it to be literally the active agent or the spirit of it, because I would like to think it could stand outside of the oven or wherever it was and have influence on whatever the baked good is. All 3 stooges put the yeast in. I don't know what that means. And technically, aren't there 4 if you include Shep? No one wants to include Shep, though. No one likes Shep. Oh man, I should have had my coffee a long time ago. I'm too lit. Oh, I also like the word need. So if I can fit that in as a pun or something at some point, I'm gonna. Let's see. Pasta noodles, unleavened doughs. Quick breads. Oh, that's what you were talking about, Kitch. Quick breads. I find gnocchi is really hard to eat. At the very bottom of dough in Wikipedia it says, the word dough is a common slang term for money in the English-speaking countries. This usage is originally American and dates to the mid-19th century. Similar slang terms are having the bread or loaded. Thank you, Wikipedia. Ooh, now, honestly, I can do so much with Wikipedia. I love this. They have a list of types of pastries, and they come with pictures, you guys. This is so good. Yeah, they need to add get that bread. Ugh. And I love that it shows the origin of all these. These are fantastic. So, what I can do now is, since I wanted to do baked good stickers, right? I can go down this list and see any that I just feel really drawn to. The hardest part about any of this is knowing who you are and what you're into. So, like the fact I thought yeast was interesting. You'd have to know about yourself that you think that's a cool thing to base an entire month's creature on. And that can take a while to get that kind of artistic confidence with, well, I really like this thing. It really speaks to me and what I do. I can do that. I feel like you have to kind of already know your style, really have explored the things that you can add in and whatever. Somebody at a con recently told me that my style is cottagecore, which I had to look up later, but they were like, yeah, it means like, grandma-centric type stuff, like cottages and knitting and like, old traditional type stuff, wooden bowls and things. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty me. Maybe with a focus on like micro worlds and animals, but yeah, I can get behind cottagecore. I was like, what? So that's what we're doing, Sarah. So the whole thing is I'm teaching today how to actually research for projects and art, and we're using what I'm doing next month for my monthly Mythical Guardians as the vehicle. So the vehicle for me right now is yeast. So we're talking about baked goods in the sense where I've explained how to go down this certain research road and what to pick up from it, and then how to apply it to whatever the thing is. So let's say you were doing an illustration, right? You're doing an illustration on, say, maybe you have a car that you want to cut in half and have the inside of the back end showing, but you only want very specific things in there. So you would actually have to research cars. What do they absolutely need to run so this at least looks legitimate, right? And then you'd look that up. Okay, well, it needs this, 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 and this. Then you'd pick out one of those things, start going down that little list that you made. Then you'd be like, well, I have to look up what a carburetor looks like. I have to look up what an engine looks like. I have to look up what this looks like. And then, where they are in, conjunction with each other. And then after you've kind of learned that, in that part, maybe you could smear a little bit where they don't have to be exactly near each other. But then, you look up what they look like, and if they kind of have a similar look, well, you kind of combine that, take it into your head, spit it back out in your style, and then you kind of made your own thing based off that idea with some real world elements, so it at least feels grounded in reality. Does that make sense? It's really like you're filtering a lot of stuff, but I'm telling you kind of how to do it. You got it, Kitchen. Thank you. Is all of this helping at all? I want to make sure that the metaphor is there, like that we're using it as a vehicle, but you're also like getting something from this. If you're confused or you want me to expand on something, let me know. But yeah. Oh, they all put the yeast in. Oh no. Only one was supposed to do it. God, they're so cute. I kind of wish Curly had suspenders, though. He would look the cutest if he had suspenders. Right. So you might want to replay this later then, Sarah. If research is hard for you or you get distracted or whatever, this tells you how to nail down and when to know when to stop or come back from, going too far down a rabbit hole. Because the internet is fantastic for research, but you have to know when you can actually use stuff and when you can't. So the idea that there is black yeast, that's cool because it exists, it's a thing, it's a real term if I wanted to use that, and I could use that as an evil form of it because apparently it's not good, it allows in bad bacteria and stuff. So it is evil in essence, right? When you make a metaphor. So you also just have to understand how to take what you see, learn, hear, whatever, and turn it into a metaphor. What could that thing be? And this comes a lot, like I said, from the two caveats I mentioned in the beginning of this is you have to be used to thinking of original concepts and ideas pretty frequently for this to work the way I'm explaining it. Because you give me any topic, I can just like riff off that however much you want. And I full confidence in it. Totally okay with it. You do that to somebody who's not used to it, they're going to fumble a bit. They're like, well, and then they'll rely on stereotypes and tropes to explain to you that thing. Whereas I could probably give you something more uncommon. I guess. So you have to kind of be used to this, so not regurgitating fan art or anything like that that you've seen. You have to be used to your creative muscle, which is a thing to us, at least me and Gabe. Like, the more you use thinking of original ideas, the stronger you're going to get at being able to do it and do it well, and surprise people and have good ideas. So that was one thing. The other thing is that you have to be curious and really hungry about knowledge. That's a little bit harder for some people. Like, telling somebody else to get excited about learning about yeast might be pulling hairs, right? It might be really difficult. But you have to teach yourself as an artist and as anybody, honestly, that every job has that silver lining. It has something in it you like. You just have to find it, right? That one part of it. And if it's the one part that is really small, leave it for last if you can, and do everything else building up to that, so it's almost like a reward in the project, that sort of thing. Very important. I mean, just as like, you know, a life lesson, really. Shalodron. Yes, and excluding things based on one's target audience. Awesome! Yeah, I'm glad that hit through. So, the fact that yeast is also used in liquid form for beer, but because I really do want this to be geared towards kids eventually, right now a lot of it's just either parents or mostly fantasy fanatics like me, but eventually I want to gear it towards kids and get kids in on this, kind of like Zoo Books was geared towards kids, and highlights and those sorts of things. But when you're selling to kids, you have to sell to the parents. So that's a really hard thing, especially since a lot of parents, at least my age that I know of, they don't really use the internet very often. Sheldon, you and Kristen are very special because you know tech, you know the internet. But a lot of people I know that have kids, they don't even, other than Facebook, they don't know anything. So I'm kind of SOL with that. So right now I'm still gearing towards, you know, people that are just really into fantasy and creatures, Pokemon, Studio Ghibli, those people. They did enjoy this, I think. But because beer is also part of yeast, and so is wine, but I choose to exclude that because that's not what I want this demographic to be like. However, if I get really smart about my writing, I can work that in there where the adults will see it and the kids won't. So, like I said, that's a really delicate balance that I'd have to maintain. Do it, Sarah. I say do it. So now we're at the point where I can kind of start doing character sketches. I could do the breads now if I want to, and then I have to decide, you know, how many stickers do I want to do with it as well. Do I want to do, you know, 12 and have 3 baked goods, 3 breads, 3 other kinds, stuff like that. And that depends on the stickers being like, I want them to be pretty generic and approachable, where I can sell these normally on their own too. So I don't want to do the stickers too based on anything I'm going to write. Because if they're very particular to the thing that I've written, where anybody could walk up and be like, what is going on there? You know, and it's too confusing, that's not going to help me sell it. So for the stickers, they need to be pretty generic, pretty approachable for everybody, and easily understood at a first glance. Now, anything I include in the actual monthly Mythical Guardian pack, that can be very specific and very tailored to that one thing. So I'm thinking, since this is kind of a high-level idea, since it's a spirit and it doesn't really exist, there's not much to go off of, like yeast doesn't really look like anything. It can look like whatever I want it to. I might have to kind of approach it like I did with the spur. I called it a spur, which was back in July? June? I don't think it's in here. Maybe it's in the back. No. That's me on the dragon. Hamsters. No, I forgot where I put it. He should be in here, but he's not. Oh, there he is. Okay, so the spur. It's a very strange looking little guy. He always carries a feather, right? I think this is the one I ended up using. He has just this shape. They're not horns or anything like that. He's just a very particular shape. Because he was the spirit of tornadoes. So when I had done that, I wanted him to kind of be reminiscent of a tornado, but not overtly so. Like, you don't want to just do a tornado shape or a triangle, right? So he performs this dance with this feather, and that in turn makes tornadoes. But I want him to be very simple and have these other things that he does too. I don't want to talk too much about them because they're on my website and you can get them if you want. But I feel like this is going to be a similar thing where I need to make, you know, a character that's kind of yeasty, I guess. It's the spirit of yeast. So I could give him a big fluffy belly. I could make him look like a baked good. I could make him look like a pile of powder if I wanted to. I could go as far as to make it look like a fairy or something. Like, there are no rules to this one, so it might actually take me a long time to nail something down. Usually what I would explore at this time is if he's going to be around all these baked items, whether they're being baked or being mixed or whatever, like whenever he is present in the process, and I'm just saying he is a generic they, whenever they're present in the process, you know, do I want them to be seen? Do I want them to kind of be above the action? Where do I want them? If they're in plain sight, should they look like something specific? Like, should they be in the ball of dough? You know, should they be an element that gets added to the dough and they play in it or something? Like, there are all these factors that you have to think about when you're designing either characters or, you know, this is world building on a very small scale, which I personally believe you should never world build before you have the characters. I feel like the characters world build for you. Otherwise, if you world build for characters, you're actually building more of a cage, and it's really hard to actually develop characters when you've kind of caged them in. They don't feel as organic. It's better to make the character and then make the world around that character. Okay, so if I played with the idea that you can see them in plain sight, they would have to look like something that would be on the table. So if I type in yeast, and this is where some things can get dicey, a lot of the time you get pictures of, like, you know, cellular level stuff with what they look like, or like what yeast looks like when you add it to stuff, where it's usually just a powder. So I mean, there's that. I don't necessarily want to make it a powder, but I could make it so when it moves, it kind of forms a little, like, figure, and then it can kind of disperse again later on. Or I could make it look like a baked good, and maybe it's just invisible. It's more what I just feel like drawing in terms of what I want it to be. And about this time too, I start thinking about, like, right now my brain's going to, well, I don't want it to look like my other monthly mythical guardians. So what shapes haven't I done yet that would still be applicable to this guy? So I already did a rock shaped guy. I did kind of a triangular guy. I've done a half sphere. And the Snowlum is whatever. So that's another tough one, since the Snowlum is very whatever. It's amalgamous. Basically, it can be whatever shape it wants to be. Do I want the same thing of this? Probably not. I kind of want this to be like an actual figure. But it might be made out of air, honestly, like she's saying. Because, yeah, well, glitter, the snow loom's really blobby, though. Because they can change into all these different things. Yeah, I put that away. And I didn't want another blobby one after, blobby one regular, because they're blobby. They're snowflakes that combine, and as they combine and get bigger, they have different forms. So they're very blobby. So I don't want to do another blobby. So I want this to almost have a body. So then I start getting excited because it's like, I like making characters that only have a certain set of limbs. I know that probably sounds really weird, but like if I wanted something to be shaped like this and have little feet and, look like this. See, that's already too close to my wheat willer. So that's from September. So that's too close. Can't do that. I haven't done something kind of long before. But then I could also make this one kind of humanoid if I wanted to. I don't do very many humanoid ones just because, I don't know, I get bored with them. I like them to look more weird. Almost like Kadamas, or things like that. Okay, get a little guy here. I could also think about bread and things that kind of relate to it that are accessories to it almost. So like some bread is wrapped in a shawl, technically, like a little dinner roll napkin, whatever. No, Sarah, I completely disagree with that personally. I mean, you can be a good writer with that, yeah, that's going to help you, but I don't think you have to be a good writer. In fact, I kind of avoid reading some stuff just because I don't want to take from it and accidentally regurgitate it as my own. We call that biting in the industry. I don't accidentally want to bite on someone else's ideas. So I think it can definitely help you, but I also think it could be a crutch. And the other thing is, some people read so much that they can't actually write anything. Or when they sit down to write, they have so many ideas or so many things that they've read that they don't know what to decide on. So who's actually doing more writing? The person that hasn't read a lot that writes more than the person that reads, or the person that read a lot that writes maybe once in a while, What if it had hands and no feet? Yeah, so he could be floating, and we could play with shapes and just have hands, because that would make sense, wouldn't it, Glitter? Because then it could need, an encourage and clap. That makes sense. And we were talking about yeast being an encouraging spirit. I'll even write that down. Encouraging spirit. Because it's asking and hyping up. It's a hype spirit. It's your hype man. Now, and the same goes for my partner Gabe, who's a comic artist, and there's this awful thing going around where it's like, oh, you can only be a comic artist if you read a lot of comics. No, that is also very untrue. He makes lots of comics, and he doesn't read comics, not anymore. He also doesn't want to bite on people. So I think it's less to do with what you produce isn't directly relative to what you consume, Like, I would say that somebody who's producing way more than they are consuming, they're actually doing the walk. They're walking the walk and not just talking the talk, right? And eventually, if they're making so much, they're going to learn what to do and what not to do. And hell, I'll bet you anything they're going to do something that hasn't been done before, because so many people that say read Harry Potter or Game of Thrones and things like that, when they sit down to write, it might just be a clone of that, So I almost think coming from a completely clear space will help you more than anything, There you go, Glitter. There you go. That's a good one. So yeah, I really like this idea. of just including the hands, because it really accentuates the idea that everything that they do has to do with your hands. And hands, for some reason, have that whole coming back full circle to the idea of February and baking things with love. You know, so much happens with hands. You know, hands are a way to show affection. They're, you know, you work at something, your hands are in it. They're very intimate in so many ways. Like anything you ever do in your life has to do with your hands, right? I think that's what Edward Scissorhands was kind of talking about. This is such an intimate thing. Whatever you lay them on could be something powerful, you know? Whether you're alluding to loving someone, you know, pat on the back, or making food for someone, that sort of thing. Like, so much comes from the hands. So glitter, if I can actually make it revolve around it just having hands, I would love that. So let's kind of, I guess, go down that road. Hands are epic. True that. True that. The hard thing about all of this is I'll usually make this list and I'll kind of think about it for a while. And then I'll have things kind of locking together and unlocking in my head and being like, well, I could do this, but can't do that because of this reason. And I've kind of been talking through that, but at the same time, this is one of those things during creation where you kind of want to hermit and you just want to sit there, and it's like a computer processing, right? You're going through all these ideas or all these options and all that stuff. So for me to actually try doing this, and maybe even looking up references on something. So at this point, you could look up, you know, what certain baked goods look like. Is there a way I could take this baked good and give it hands and make it look really cute or really interesting, or, you know, something like that. Like, I guess if, let's say it had a crimp sides, kind of like a little pot pie or something, you know, something like that. And it had little eyes, and maybe its hands were, let's see, maybe triangles? Or funnel cake or something, or little croissants. Epic baby holders. There you go. Salad drawn. While she's probably even here. Okay, see, and as you draw and go through these ideas, the hands, I try to make them look like little croissants. They actually look like it's got huge fingers, right? I don't know if you can see this. I did it kind of small. This is me technically thumbnailing all these silhouettes and things. So it just looks like it's got really big fingers, which I don't hate. It's kind of ugly right now, but I mean, we can keep going with that. Maybe the whole thing is a croissant, or I'll probably eventually move away from this literal bread looking idea, but for now it's kind of fun. Maybe it's just got these little nubs? No, those look like legs. And then I'll eventually make a whole sheet of stickers with these too, and I'll probably do them on stream too. So you guys can kind of see how this process from this stream to the next one, assuming I have the stickers next week. We'll see. I have a ton of commissions to do before then. But what if his arms were over here? And what if they do have hands? It's kind of cute. But I also kind of wanted it to be a wispy thing. Maybe it's shaped like a potato, and it kind of floats around, kind of like Slimer, I guess. But maybe it's just like, yeah, do the thing. So maybe I would assume it'd be a little bit fatter too, just because it's like, you know, baked goods. Come on. Little fat thing. So this would all just be kind of vapor or something, and this is like, yeah, this stuff. Let's see. What would it look like if it was looking over a pie? Maybe it's the steam that comes off a pie and it's like, yeah, this is great, you did great. Maybe it's not fat, maybe it's thin. I kind of want it to have a body though, but not a full body. Spoiled baby. A Volkswagen Beetle Hood? This one? Oh, this one probably. Yeah, so doing these thumbnails is important. Like I said, I'm not getting a good... I like to put in a bunch of reference pictures into my brain that I can kind of sort through, so I haven't done that yet, so let me do that. Oh, eclairs! I forgot about eclairs, too. So, oh, and empanadas. Actually, this looks like an empanada, and I'm totally cool with that. And now these hands are starting to grow on me a little bit. We'll wait, though. But I'm still stuck between having it more like a vapor, like a spirit vapor, or having it more manifested and actually like tangible. Then again, I could also have it be a thing that steals baked goods too, if I wanted to just rejigger that. And it, like, maybe yeah, it encourages you to bake them because it wants to steal them. Maybe he eats them, you know, who knows. Maybe he's a mischievous spirit. So, like, sometimes I'll take a day to just kind of bang these sort of ideas out and see. I kind of weigh it against the other monthly mythical guardians I've done too. Like, if I just did a mischievous spirit, then I'd probably shy away from doing that again this month. But the Snowlums are very sweet and kind of dumb, so. Oh, baking mitts! Oh, that's a cute idea. So, like, yeah. Oven mitts. Oven mitts? So having it, like, be a thing that's got little... I wouldn't make it probably literal to have mitts, but it could be reminiscent of the shape. Or maybe they'd be tinier compared to the body. Or maybe... Oh, like the little... You're number one! Like, oh... You're the guy. Yeah, this design I might have to play with more. I don't know why I really like this stupid looking croissant. This shape, I'm digging that. I don't know why. Cause I don't know, it could be a bunch of things. Ooh, phyllo. That thing looks cool. It looks like baklava. It's like maybe this baklava looks like a crown almost, which I kind of dig that. So it's got like this stuff in the middle. It's shaped kind of like this, and then the back has a thing like that. I kind of like that. Maybe the arms are attached. I don't know why I didn't think that the arms can be attached. So maybe it's got that. No legs, obviously, no legs. I do still really like the emphasis on hands, because you need your hands to make all these things. And I kind of dig that. So the thing about these sorts of processes is a lot of the time you're going to do a little bit, then you're going to sit and reflect on it, then you're going to do a little bit more, sit and reflect on it. So usually for the monthly mythical guardians, I try to be like a month ahead so I can have ample time to think about this stuff. Because I usually like it to be a pretty solid idea. There have been a few times where I've had to rush them, but for the most part, I think it's important, you know, when you're creating stuff to take that reflection period at least once or twice to look back and be like, well, what do I think of this? And blah, 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 blah. Pastry dishes. I do really enjoy really simplified foods too. Like a lot of the time I'll just get a craving to have like a piece of bread, some cheese, and like a fruit. I don't know why, like peasant meals sometimes seem really, really alluring, I guess. Let's see. I also just like the idea of a loaf of bread. I don't know, but now in my head, like, there are alerts that are starting to go off. They're telling me don't be too literal. It's like, okay, don't be too literal. Sorry, I'm reading stuff now. Alright. So, yeah, at this point, I can start actually drawing the Guardian itself, or if I'm not feeling like that, I can go over and start working on the stickers. So this is important too when you're doing projects or art pieces, and let's say I didn't want to do the Guardian right now and I just wanted to do, the stickers. I should go and do what I feel like doing at this time. This is one of those things where feeling out yourself as an artist emotionally, this is where it gets kind of hippie new age, but it really does help to know when you feel like doing something specific, because that's where you're going to be the most productive. That's where, majority of what you want to do, all your efforts are going to go into that. So if you can pick a part of a project, there's a lot of alliteration, pick a part of a project that you want to work on at that time. Like, let's say you sit down and you're like, oh, I don't want to do this and this part of this. Well, what part do you want to do? Like, if you don't want to draw the face right now, can you at least block in where the face will be and then maybe work on the clothes? I do that a lot with my Pet and Armors. If I don't feel like doing the face that night, I'll totally just be like, well, here's where the face is going to go, and then start drawing the body and the clothes, if that's what I feel like. Because if you're not working on the part that you feel like working on, the whole thing's going to suffer. So you have to learn, what parts you want to do when you want to do them. And I feel like as an artist, eventually you get to knowing that, but you have to draw a lot, or you have to write a lot. Same goes for writers. If you're a writer and, maybe you're working on a giant book, let's say. I don't recommend that as a first project. If you're an aspiring writer and you want to start writing, write small stuff. Start with a sentence. Start with a paragraph. Don't start off saying I have this epic thing to do. No, you have to build up to that, okay? Same with somebody who's like, I want to become a carpenter. I want to build my own dining room table. You're not just going to go into building a dining room table. You're going to start researching the equipment. I was going to say weapons. The equipment, and then you're going to do smaller projects to get the hang of how wood feels, how to actually shape it, what to do with it, how to make it smoother, how to stain it, all those sorts of things. And then once you get comfortable with those, you move up to bigger things, and eventually you get to the table. You don't just start with the table. Similar with writing, similar with art. You don't get a 20 by 20 foot canvas and just go for it. You can, but it's going to probably be a little bit of a waste of time, right? Start smaller, work your way up to it. Start cheaper too. But anyway, so I'm going to say right now doing stickers might be more fun. So doing cute little kawaii stickers I thought would be nice. Like just really simple, generic looking cute things. So if I had like a croissant that looked like that, I had a, let's see, let's go look at some pastries. And here I'd probably just draw a bunch of things that are cute. I don't know if I should do, this is another thing, do I do pastries from around the world that people may or may not be familiar with, and I could if I wanted to, but at the same time, if I want to avoid confusion, I might want to just stick with some basic ones. So like a cinnamon bun. If you guys want to start throwing out ideas for like baked goods, breads, desserts, things like that, I'll pick and choose a couple and see if I want to do them. So let's say this. Kristen, are you still here? And this could be cute that the icing is like a hair in the face of the cinnamon roll. Did you get your Guardian yet? I think I shipped it Wednesday. I shipped the Guardians out Wednesday. I doubt you got it, but I wanted to see if you did. So a little cinnamon bun. Let's see. Let's just type in bakery. See what we get. Not yet? Okay. Should be there either Saturday then or Monday. Shouldn't be too long. I doubt it would be Tuesday. Ooh, Danishes. Cute. Okay, so I can look at those. Then maybe like a rye? Just rye bread? Does rye bread look different than regular breads? I'd like to do one of those dark breads with the crisscross on top too. I guess you could, yeah, this could be that. Yeah, so there's one that's got it. So we could do, I mean, I might not even put eyes on these, honestly. I might just make really cute little breads. So it's kind of crusty along here. So the way, you know, I was showing you how to do the research and stuff, the idea is to kind of skip around too with things so you don't ever get too stagnant or bored with what you're researching. Every time you go down the research rabbit hole, it's important that you keep looking at things that are interesting you and at least jotting down a thing or two that kind of speaks to you so you can go back to it later. Oh, cream puff, yeah. Cream puff. And maybe this is a little bit darker on top. And, oh yeah, cream puffs are cute. Oh, these are adorable. Oh my god. Okay, so cream puff. I'm gonna actually kind of braid it too. This one looks almost braided. So I'm gonna braid it. And then it could have like powdered sugar. And I know I would forget to add this when I paint it, so I'm gonna write a note to add it. Like, don't be afraid in your sketchbooks to write things. I think your sketchbook should be a visual representation of the thoughts you're having when you're having them. Your sketchbook is not meant for, you know, perfect final pieces or anything like that. That's not what it's for. There we go. And then just for consistency's sake, I'm going to have the bottom kind of mirror the top in terms of its shape. Okay. Pretzels, donuts. Donut, definitely. I'm going to stick to the puffy things. Oh my god, there's a cookies and cream puff pastry. Shut up. Oh my god. Oh. This one says that it's got chocolate sauce on top and then like a cherry. That's really cute. Powdered sugar or chocolate syrup. This is a puff pastry. I think I'll omit the eyes because I feel like more people would use them if it didn't have eyes. But I can still make it really cute and kind of tasty looking even without it. So we don't need them. I think I'll do them with a digital watercolor brush too. Oh yeah, macaroons. Sorry, macrons. I always get the two confused. Both Gabe and I, we get them confused. Macaroon and macron. So weird. They always look so strange to me too. Glitter, you are full of great ideas today. Thank you for all your input. I mean, you're usually full of great ideas too, but this is super applicable today. Well, Sarah, at least you know that though, so, I mean, the next time you go into it being like, alright, I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna go through this creative process, you know, make sure you think things through. At least you know. A lot of people still suffer and go through it without, you know, thinking about it. It's important though that you're aware of what you're thinking of and if it applies to things, you know? Like if it'll actually help your project or not. Because I feel like it's smart to think when you're brainstorming, like consider everything. Brainstorming is great because you just don't tell yourself any idea is stupid. Just put down everything you're thinking of. That's the right way to brainstorm. Put down everything you're thinking, and then, because nothing's stupid, because what can happen is if you have like an idea that looks stupid right away, later on it might like take you on a different road when you see it again. So it could, I'm telling you, sometimes I write down the stupidest shit, but I end up actually thinking of a better idea because of that stupid idea. It's just write down everything, you know. Wafers. Maybe. I don't know about a wafer. It's almost too patterned where it's scary. That brings up a good point about patterns. Detail and patterning, you can do them to look cute. You just have to increase the size of the pattern. So it would probably end up looking more like a waffle if I did that. But the more detail or more patterns you put into something, it takes away its cuteness and adds realism. A lot of the time, if you want something to look more realistic, including people, you add, you know, wrinkles, you add, you know, detail, you add all these things to it. If you want to dial it down and make it be cuter, you take away a lot of detail and stuff. So I used to be a caricature artist at the Mall of America, and one of the first things they tell you is that for babies and just people in general, don't put on face wrinkles unless they're over 80. Because if you put on face wrinkles on anybody and they're under 80, they're going to look like they're 80. Like, you don't want that. So many more people are going to be happier if they don't have any eye wrinkles or mouth wrinkles or chin wrinkles or anything like that, or forehead. Don't put any of that in and they're going to look better. I guarantee it. Only put in wrinkles when you kind of know what you're doing. I feel if you're a beginning artist, it's almost better to leave them out until you've drawn enough people to understand how to nuance a wrinkle. What I mean by that is to properly put in a wrinkle, you don't draw a line. You never draw a line. You shade around the wrinkle to suggest the wrinkle. You never actually draw a line. Same with lips. You can usually tell a novice artist because of how they draw lips. So if you're one of the people that draws lips like, you know, you've got, same with noses. Honestly, a good portrait, you're never going to really draw much of anything. So for the lips, you'll maybe draw the shadow in of where the lips are, but like a new artist would just draw a hard line for this upper lip. That's not how you do, you know, lips. You shade up from where the line is on the lip and go up there. And then you just kind of hint at lips. You never actually like draw in a line, you know, like that, especially if you're doing realism. Like you're just managing shadows basically, right? And then if they have a philtrum, you're gonna do the reverse, and you're gonna have like a little bit of shading coming down here. But it's like you don't draw wrinkles ever. You know what I'm saying? So like if they had, let's say they did have like nose wrinkles, kind of like I do. See these wrinkles right here? If somebody has those, you don't just draw that wrinkle in, right? You maybe draw where it like would end, because that's usually the darkest. And then you shade around it. And then make sure the highlight area is there. I don't know if you can see that even. Sort of. See it? So it's right there. So that's kind of the proper way to hint at a wrinkle. You don't want to actually, you know, draw in, oh, they have a wrinkle from here to here. No, don't do that. I think cookies might count. I want more decorative baked goods though. So like more of the decadent ones. Like I would like to do a Danish, I think. Everything's so round, let's put in a square Danish. I'm gonna at some point start like a Clover quick tips on YouTube where I do what I just did and I teach things like that within 30 seconds. Because I feel like people need those more than they need a 20-minute tutorial. Like I'll teach you how to do chainmail, 30 seconds. I'll teach you how to do this, 30 seconds. You know? Sarah, you're thinking too far without actually doing anything first. Like, have you written and finished a story? Because you don't want to think of those things until you've actually written a story and stuff, you know? Oh, that's true, Glitter. That's a really good point. Me being old and shying away from social media, I try not to think of those things, but you're totally right. It probably would. Yeah, so Sarah, you gotta have something to actually sell first, you know? So instead, focus right now. I'm gonna give you homework, okay? Because you always come in here and you're always telling me about your creative process and where you are in it, and it's always in the same spot. If you really want to change things and make stuff happen for you and have your stories actually happen, start at least writing tiny stories. And by tiny, I mean tiny. If you're not writing normally, do a story or a part of a story in a paragraph. Do 5 sentences of an exchange between a couple characters, or take 5 sentences and explain a scene. How does it look? Get used to explaining things that you see up here that other people can't see. Then run it by friends, family, whatever, and see if they can see what you see, or if you left something out that was a main element that you really wanted to get across. Stuff like that. Teach you how to nene. I actually don't know how to nene. I don't know how to Dougie either. I don't know any of that shit. I'll draw you a braid in 10 seconds, but I can't nene. Oh, that is not a good Danish. I don't like that one. I'll have to redraw that. Did I get rid of my other window? Okay. Ooh, what about, I don't know what this thing is. I have this idea in my head. I think it's just a little pie. Maybe just a little fruit pie? I think it's a fruit pie. I think I'm glad. I don't know what that is. Nene? It's a dance thing, I think. From what I remember. And the tip to drawing food is always make it look really tasty. A lot of that has to do with high contrast, lots of browns mixed with some golds, lots of speck highlights if you've got lots of syrupy things or icing. Yeah. Though there is this fine line. I had to illustrate a bunch of food for a game I was doing in like 2008, whatever. You don't want to make it look too sexual. I know that's a weird thing to say, but it's true. You don't want it to look too explicit. It's weird, but yeah. Yeah, Sarah, just start really, really small. There's no shame in starting small, okay? And you're going to grow faster than you think if you do that every day. Take 20 minutes, 10, 20 minutes, and write something a little bit every day. All right? I don't want you to come in here next time telling me you haven't written anything, all right? I want you to actually go write something. And tell me you wrote this many pages or something like that. Yeah, bread shouldn't look sexual, right? Like, no. So, you know, you gotta be a little bit tactful when it comes to even adding syrup or something. You know, so like I want to kind of have it dripping out, and you know, you don't want to add that necessarily. It could be overkill, you know. Oh, let's see. I haven't drawn a donut. Let's draw a donut. It's a big damn donut. You know, you can make food pretty nasty, let me tell you. It's weird. I feel like if you drew like porn or not safe for work stuff, you'd have to like, it's the same rules as food. I know that sounds stupid and crazy, but I got it. Hot Pocket. Hot Pocket. Did you ever see that Jim Gaffigan bit about Hot Pockets? It had me rolling. Man, fuck this donut. I don't like that one. These are also really hard to imagine without color. I gotta be honest. Like I'm looking at, oh, a tart. Do tarts rise? I do kind of wish Kitchen was here because I don't want to draw something that, you know. But I guess it doesn't even have to do with a rising. This part. So the story does. This part with the stickers, nah, it doesn't have to. This part is just like baked goods. And draw whatever the hell I want for that. So to make it cuter, I'm going to make things bigger. So all these fruits and things. And maybe there's this cute little leaf on top. Who knows? It's a tart. Tarts have all this shit thrown on them, right? I took one glance at a tart and I'm like, yeah, I'll make my own. Whatever, man. The bread. Okay. So, I guess Glitter, you were the main one, I think, was getting things from this research and apply. Did that make sense? Did all that kind of like what I was saying and how I was explaining it and how I was saying to apply it, did that all kind of flow together? So I was trying to articulate what I was thinking while I was thinking it in my normal thought pattern, but also talking about it was super strange. So I don't like teaching things in terms of like, oh, I have a lesson plan and I'm going to go through this. It's like, well, I'll just do it and I'll kind of, because I've done it so many times, I thought, well, I can articulate it decent enough, I hope. Shortcake. Ooh. Shortcake. Butters, you okay? Butters is here. Good, Sarah. I'll see you later. Good luck. Wow. Short? Cake. Jesus. You know, shortcakes are basically little fruit burgers. Can we be honest here? It's like a English muffin fruit burger. That's what it kind of looks like. I mean, is there anything you'd want me to expand on, Glitter? Anything that I kind of touched, but it was like, well, I didn't talk enough about that? Oh man, I love English muffins, right? Oh my god. Okay, the way this frosting is holding this berry is a little bit intimate, I'll be honest. Looks a little raunchy, but I'm gonna try and make it cute. Do you think it'll help in the future how to go about doing that? Like, honestly, it's just like start Googling stuff. I feel like that'll help. And then start reading on it. Let yourself kind of get consumed by it. But also be aware that, no, that I don't want to put that in. That seems kind of left field, you know. Depending on what you're doing, too. That's the other hard thing. I was kind of doing a roundabout, well, you know, if you're doing this or this, but it's like, depending on the project you're doing, if you're writing a novel versus if you're just doing a little bit of prose like I was. And, I mean, also with this, I'm going to probably put in a little ritual poem to say while stuff's cooking. I always like that kind of crap. I think it's adorable. So that, you know, there will probably be a poem associated with it that if a kid reads this, they can say the little spiel to their cooking thing while it's baking. So it rises nicely. I always think that stuff's cute. I've always enjoyed putting the, I have little rituals sometimes in these monthly Mythical Guardians. And it always makes it really adorable. I like it. So this could be pretty decadent if I did it like this. And I could add syrup coming out of the bottom, but I feel like that's a little weird. I'm telling you, man. Choices. Too sexual, whatever. Food. The neat thing about frosting and cream I'm learning is that it kind of, like, depending on how thick it is, it kind of folds over itself. It's a lot like a braid. Which is funny. There are all different kinds of shortcakes too. Most of them seem round, but there's some that are square too. Oh, those are cute. Shit. You okay? You getting too warm? Hmm? You want to get up? Hmm? You okay? She's happy. She's warm. You've been sitting on my lap this whole time. Yeah. Good girl. Oh, your breath smells like a nasty old fish tank, but I love you. Basically, yeah. And to be open-minded to different ways, you know, your brain might take you. Because you have to kind of trust your artistic intuition a bit. But like I said, that has to do with really knowing how you work as an artist. And I feel like a lot of art teachers won't even put that as a precursor or a caveat to things. You know, they'll just say, oh, I can teach you how to do all this stuff. It's like, okay, but you kind of have to have a prerequisite when it comes to certain things. And some art classes, you gotta be really careful. Like, especially if they're online ones too. You know, that if they claim to teach you everything in one class or something, you gotta be really mindful, because a lot of the time, I would even say like 90% of the time, all of these classes hinge on you. So yeah, you think you're paying for, you know, this cure-all thing that this person's gonna, you know, provide you with, and you'll come away and you'll be the best artist ever. That's kind of not how it goes. You know, you have to apply yourself regardless, but they also have to be a pretty good teacher to get across as much as they claim a lot of the time. So just be mindful of that, and that a lot of the times there is no cure-all when it comes to art. No one can really tell you how to draw anything and everything in just a couple classes. They can give you tips on how to do it, but, you know, the worst part is a lot of people, it hinges on them and their determination, so they end up wasting money because they could have just done it on their own. But, you know, they were hoping somebody else would tell them a shortcut or a quick fix. And it's like, man, that's not how it is. You gotta put in the time, you know. Yeah, I kinda like that bread. That's a cute bread. That too, but sometimes, you know, depending, even if they're really good in terms of art, even if they're really good, it really hinges on you, you know, and the people who are gonna eventually be successful in what they're doing, they're gonna learn to drive themselves too, you know. So, hey Sarah, how you doing? So this stream has been interesting. It's been pretty, all over the place, to say the least. I went into it with a kind of a loose idea of what I wanted to show people. And we talked about some other stuff here, how to kind of create a world and character in a very small scope. But I'm good. It got kind of like, I don't want to say hippie, just kind of new agey in terms of any classes you take, anything you do, anything you learn has to kind of be applicable from your side of things. Like, you have to kind of know how you work for it to work for you. Does that make sense? So if you're the type, kind of like the idea of if you don't want to take night classes and you take night classes, is that really going to help you if you know you learn better during the day? Similar, but apply it to art, you know? My snacks look great. You're a snack. Thank you. These are potentially stickers for February's Mythical Monthly Guardian. Monthly Mythical Guardian. Jesus Christ. So this month's is this guy right here. Little Snowlum. And starting is the hardest. It's true. But I found that regardless of the mood you're in, if you know you've got time and you know you need to practice or do whatever that day, find the silver lining and also just open like a browser window and type in something to get your motor going. You know, at the very least do that. And then sometimes you'll get lucky and you'll see something that's like, yo, all right. I'm in this spot though where I'm doing original ideas every single day, all day. And I have to find the silver lining in every project I do. And I'm 3 years into doing that on a freelance mindset. And after you get into that zone, you're able to find something you like in every project you do. Before I was in that mindset, it was really difficult because I'd be dreading certain parts of it, and then, you know, I'd trudge through them and all that stuff. You have to figure out how you work best in terms of, do you work well when you have a reward to work towards? If so, save your favorite part of that piece for the end, or save it for a time when you're kind of dreading the piece and you'd rather work on a certain part. Work on the parts you want to work on, because the project is going to benefit from that in the long run. Don't work on the parts you don't feel like working on. If you don't feel like working on the face right now, don't do the face. Block in the face. Say, it's going to go right there. And then go do the clothing aspect or something else. Work on what you feel like, because the overall piece is going to be happier because of it. A lot of people don't realize that, I guess. Kobe Kai, hi! Hello! How are you? But yeah, so this stream was kind of about how to research for art and how to apply that research. And I feel like it did that. We went through the process of how I usually do it every month for my Patreon. And, you know, the turmoil you feel while you're actually in the midst of a project. And the whole idea is, if you're not an artist that's used to doing longer projects or projects in general, it's important that you feel the start of a project, the middle of a project, and the end of a project to be able to ever do anything that's, you know, large scale or, you know, that's going to take months or years to do. You have to understand how that pacing works, how the actual arc of the project is going to feel. This is also why we do Journey June in June, which is for technically it's for artists who want to learn how to write stories. So you can check that out if you want. But, did it do it? Okay. But it is just on a small scale important to learn how that feels, because usually people start a project, they'll get about this far and they'll just cop out and leave. And they'll either lose confidence in it, they'll start to hate it. There's a lot of prep work you have to do for a project before you even get into it and commit to it. You have to know yourself well enough to know, could I do a whole project based on this one thing? And a lot of the time you want to test that and figure out who you are as an artist based on what you like and such, that you could do a whole project based on that. And in turn, that's going to shape your style, that's going to shape all the things you make, you know, all those things. So your style, artists are always freaking out about their style. Your style this is what it is. It's basically what you choose to keep in and leave out over time after drawing and drawing and drawing and drawing. So every time, you know, people are like, how do I find my style? First of all, you can have multiple styles. No one ever tells you that either. I've got like 5 different styles depending on the medium I'm using. It can be totally different. It's fine. There are no rules to this. But in terms of like content and what you like to draw and stuff, you're going to only figure that out by drawing a lot. Okay? Or writing a lot if you're a writer. Okay? You got to do something a lot to figure out, well, I like this, I don't like that, I always want to use this, I don't always want to use that. And that in turn is going to define who you are as an artist, writer, whatever, but also your style. And people will start recognizing it. And it's like, well, that's why this artist doesn't do musculature this way, because they'd rather make it look like this character's a building or something, so they have really sharp angles and all that shit, you know, stuff like that. Drawing a lot is just the safest way to do it, honestly. And it sucks. I don't know why I typed a 3. Sorry, Glitter. That wasn't for anything. I think my elbow hit my keyboard. Okay, so that's the other thing. Learning what to draw is another thing that people study, like, they have problems with. So when people do studies, they'll just draw disembodied arms or eyes or lips or all this stuff. We strongly believe in applying studies to pieces, because then at least you have a full piece, sort of, or at least a coherent picture. You just drawing an arm isn't going to help anybody. Also, learning anatomy, yeah, it's important to an extent, but it's more important you learn, like, just proportions. You don't need to know what muscle goes to what thing unless you really want to be, like, a human artist that's maybe doing scientific and anatomical things, like for medical dictionaries. You don't need to know what any of the muscles are called. You don't need to know this stuff. I mainly do animal art. So when I draw humans, I'm just doing what I want for a human. And it's fine. You know, don't overthink things. I think a lot of artists nowadays are really getting turned off and you know, leaving art because they're like, oh, it's so much pressure. I have to learn all this stuff. You don't. Remember, art's supposed to be fun. Do whatever is fun to you. If you want to draw 50 kinds of pine cones, like some people, do it. Who cares? Someone will like it. You know? Like, it's important you just do what you want. Don't do what's popular, and don't do what you think you should do. Only do what you want to do. Otherwise, it's not art, in my opinion. Art is supposed to be a reflection of you, right? So draw whatever the hell you want. If you want to, like, sit in your underwear and draw realistic portraits with ketchup, who's going to stop you? In fact, somebody might love that. You never know. And there's something out there for everybody, right? Remember that too. That no matter what you want to do, even if you feel like an absolute outcast with what you want to do, fuck everybody else who doesn't think that. That's okay. You do you because it makes you happy, and you'll find like-minded people by putting yourself out there. That's what matters. I don't know. Just saying. I'm not wildly popular online because I don't draw hot women. I don't draw pretty girls. I don't draw, like, flowers and hyper-realism. I don't like any of that shit. I draw animals and clothes, you guys. Like, old school, traditional kids' book art, animals and clothes. that are going about their day like turning an acorn into a hat. I love that. That gets me crazy happy. Would I go draw Batman just because Batman's suddenly popular in the news? No. No. Why? Because that's not me. I wouldn't be true to myself then. That'd be a cash grab. Don't do that. Stay true to you, man. Anyway, we're drawing some cute croissants and shit. That's what we got going on right now. Anyway, I was gonna quit the stream soon. Did anybody have any questions on anything we were talking about earlier? We also have a Discord for this kind of junk, if anybody wants in on that. We have a nice, tiny community. Like I said, I actually love having a tinier community. I hopefully won't have hundreds of thousands of followers one day. I don't really want that. That's a lot of pressure. I like having tinier, more intimate classrooms, so to speak, that we can all kind of share and know each other. So, anyway, we talk like this a lot. Because I have a friend who's got hundreds of thousands of followers, and I don't want any part of that. I hear from him how it is, and it's like, bro, I don't want to do with that. If it happens, I think I could deal with it, but for the most part, I have no want to get there. If it does, cool. If it doesn't, cool. Either way, I'm just going to do my art and be happy doing what I do. Which goes to say I've got a Patreon that I do stories on every month, and my pitch is that on the Curious Collector tier, I gotta make a hotkey for this, but on the Curious Collector tier, there are these things called monthly Mythical Guardians, that it's basically if you took Pokemon and Studio Ghibli and mashed them up. I do like, it's basically kind of a field guide. So every month you get a different creature, it tells you a story or lore about them, and then you get a buff from them, and then you either get stickers or a print, depending on which I feel is more appropriate that month. So, I don't know, man, it's pretty fun. I enjoy it. It's a physical thing. It is $6 this month, but in February it's going up to $8. For anybody that gets in before February, though, it locks you in. So even when it goes up to $8, you'll stay at $6. So I just want people to know that before it happens. Is it raining?
Yep.
Ooh. Ruh-roh. Dogs aren't gonna want to go out. So next month, you're gonna get some bread stickers or baked good stickers of some kind. Alright, let's see. What other breads could I do? Breads or... And some of these I'll actually do, some I won't. The point is to brainstorm like I was talking about earlier. Brainstorm without thinking there are any bad ideas. Put down everything you brainstorm, because you never know, if it's going to be a hit or not later, or it'll make you think of something else later. You never know. Just write down or draw everything you can think of. I think it's really important that people know, too, that there is no failing. The American concept of failing is really bad. What I've been telling people lately that I feel like is a really good analogy is if you think of scientists and when they perform an experiment, right? When a scientist performs an experiment and it fails, did they fail? No. Do they just see it as, oh, I need to tweak some things and try again? And they don't take it personally or anything? It's more of a, calculated error? Yeah. Why don't we as artists do that? We really should. If you draw something weird or badly, in your opinion, don't say you're a bad artist and you need to quit, or, don't put yourself down or anything like that. It's weird. You don't need to do that. Just know what you gotta fix and try again. It's actually really easy if you start thinking about it in a more mathematical way, I guess. Just know you're not failing. You're trying and trial and erroring. That's a more healthy way to think about it. You know? Pretzels. Oh yeah, pretzels. Glitter. I love you. Pretzels. That's a basis for a pretzel. I need to actually go look up a pretzel. Just to make sure. Oh, see? See? My memory of a pretzel isn't exactly right. That is not a pretzel. Weird! Gabe, I bet you would draw a pretzel wrong if you tried to draw it from memory.
What?
Okay, think of one real quick.
Uh-huh.
Okay, the shape of it, like how you draw it, and then come look at it. Ooh, sorry. Bruni, why are you doing that? I want to see how you drew it.
That one was just really quick.
Bruni, no. Come here.
Yeah, I don't think I can.
Okay, now come look at what a pretzel actually looks like.
I know what it looks like when they make it. When they flip it.
So it goes down and around. Bruni, don't bark.
Yeah, because when they do it at
They
the
twist
at the
it
pretzel
once.
place, yeah.
Yeah. Gabe, grab her. Ah. Oh, I have a graph gear. I didn't even know. Speaking of pencils, if you're new to drawing, or you don't draw a lot or anything, or you find out that, you know, oh, I get hung up on the details. What's my problem? How will I ever fix this? Get bigger lead. Like, I always draw with a 0.9. If you're doing a 0.7 or smaller, stop it. And if you're an amateur artist, don't do that. Because that's going to actually make you focus on details and specifics too much. If you get bigger lead, it's going to make you do more generic things, and it's going to help you stick to silhouettes and important movements and gestures and things like that. The minute you go to smaller lead, think about it like you need to know why you're going to smaller lead. You need to have gone to smaller lead, if that makes sense. Like, you draw something, you're like, man, I need smaller lead right about now. But make sure your whole piece is basically done. And that leads me to, like, people who draw too heavily. If that's you, if you draw too dark, like right off the bat, you have to think that, all right, I'm going to draw lightly the entire piece, and then I'll go back in and I'll draw heavy for the remainder of it once everything's in place. I'll pick and choose what has heavy lead. Because if you draw heavy lead right away, man, you're screwed. You're not going to be able to erase that. You're not going to be able to do anything. Think of it like an 80-20 rule. 80% of it you do lightly, and the other 20% you go in and you darken it. I don't know any artists really that when they're starting things, they do it really heavily, you know. Yeah, graphite sticks if you've got a giant thing, or like depending on what you're doing, graphite sticks, sure, but you're going to get really messy, you know. Maybe if you're doing like a painting or something that's bigger, but if you're working on this, you don't want a graphite stick. You know, if it's this small, like that's as big as my hand. I mean, you'd need a lead holder for sure for that, which we usually have, and it's a 9mm that I use. I don't have mine near me, but you know, honestly, whenever artists get asked, what tools do you use? If they're a really good artist and people are like, oh my god, I want to use what you use. Doesn't matter what you use. I'm going to be honest. A good artist will make whatever tools they have into the tools. But they're usually a good artist who has either worked with them a lot or just knows their way around that particular medium, you know? So typically I use markers, I use pastels, I use colored pencils, and did I already say pastels? Yeah, and gel pens. Yeah, so that's usually what I'm using on my streams, but you know, when I'm sketching, I'm just sketching for, this is, like I said, for Patreon, so I'm not stressing it, I'm not using anything too fancy. Like, I could be using a crayon right now, it wouldn't matter. I think too many people, when they're starting out with art, put too much emphasis on the tools. It's not about the tools. Also, don't get a Cintiq or anything like that until you're actually good and you know you need one. Don't get one thinking it's going to help you become a better artist. It's not true. I feel like I know probably 5 different people who got those thinking, oh, it's going to make me better at art. No, it doesn't. It's like being given power as a person. Like, if you were given power right now to, you know, or money, like, what kind of person would you become? Would it make you, you know, better or worse? It's like, well, if you don't know how to draw and you get a Cintiq, it's not going to make you learn how to draw. That's not how that works. Or an iPad, you know? You almost have to earn it. I feel like it's a rite of passage. And I mean, I worked in game design for 10 years. I was doing games. So it's like, you have to know why you need one, you know? So once I got to the point, I was like, yeah, I probably need one right about now. You go as far as you can, you hit that ceiling, and then you go over it. Similar to, we feel that, like, when you're an artist and you're an amateur artist, it's better to draw small and do a lot of different pieces rather than draw bigger, not know how to fill the space yet because you have no idea how to work with that much space. Start small, start 4x6, move up to 5x7, then bigger and bigger and bigger. And, you know, depending on how you progress, you'll know when to size up. You know, you'll be going to the edges of your paper and be like, well, I guess I need bigger paper. And it's a clear sign of how to level up, you know? Anyway, I think I'm going to cut the stream. I think we went over a lot of stuff today. I usually stream on Fridays at 7 p.m. Central. Like I said about the Patreon stuff, if you want to get locked in at 6 before it goes up to 8, check that out. Otherwise, yeah. I'm trying to think. So I'll be on next Friday. Yeah, Kobe Kai, it was good to have you. Feel free to follow if you want. But yeah, I used to stream a lot. Now I just kind of stream on Fridays kind of loosely, teach things here and there. You know, you're welcome, Glitter. I'll try to get your package out next week, okay? I got you down. But you guys have a good weekend, alright? And we'll see you next week. Gabe's on Tuesday?
With me.
Tuesday. He's my mod. If you look in the chat, he's my moderator. He streams on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. But regardless, have a good weekend. We'll see you next week. Bye!